The sea was a beast tonight, its roar swallowing the stars. Owen Calder stood on the splintered dock, his boots slick with salt and despair, the wind clawing at his weathered jacket. 3 years since Mara's boat vanished into the maw of a storm like this one, and still he came here every dusk staring at the horizon as if it owed him answers. The town whispered of barking from the old lighthouse, a sound carried on the gale like a ghost's plea, and tonight it tugged at him, a faint jagged note beneath the waves' fury. His hands rough as the cliffs tightened around nothing, his heart a hollowed hull waiting for the tide to drag him under or spit him back to life. The lighthouse stood like a broken sentinel, its cracked stone walls bleeding rust into the cliff's edge. Owen trudged through the storm rain, needling his face, each step heavier than the last. The air smelled of salt and decay, the sea's breath mingling with the rot of abandoned hope. Faint barks echoed from within, sharp and desperate like a heartbeat trapped in stone. The iron gate groaned under his push, its hinges screaming as if warning him to flee. Shadows clung to the spiral stairs, and the wind howled through shattered windows, a chorus of ghosts urging him forward or back. He didn't know which. The lighthouse loomed, its silhouette a scar against the sky, mirroring the ache in his chest. Owen's breath fogged the dim interior, the lighthouse's chill seeping into his bones like an old regret. He leaned against the damp wall, his mind a whirlpool of unspoken sorrows. Mara's voice in the wind, her hand slipping from his in that final storm. Why was he here? The barking had pulled him a thread in the dark, but now silence pressed in heavy as the sea's judgment. His fingers, calloused from years of hauling lines, trembled as he traced the spiral stairs upward, each step echoing the void in his chest. Grief wasn't a wave anymore. It was this numbness, a fog that blurred the line between living and merely enduring. A low growl rumbled from above, vibrating through the stones, and Owen froze, his heart stuttering, not with fear, but with the faint, unwelcome stir of something alive inside him. He whispered to himself, "Just turn back." But his feet betrayed him, climbing into the unknown, where shadows danced like forgotten promises. From the gloom at the top of the stairs, 2 amber eyes gleamed like embers in ash. The German shepherd Drift, though Owen didn't know it yet, crouched low, its fur matted with salt and scars, a limp in its hind legs, speaking of battles lost to the waves. It guarded a sealed door, rusted and bolted, as if the wood held the weight of the world. Drift's gaze locked on Owen's, not with aggression, but a haunted wariness that mirrored his own eyes that had seen too much water, too much loss. A soft whine escaped the dog, barely audible over the storm's rage, a plea wrapped in caution. Owen's breath caught. In that moment, the lighthouse felt less like a tomb and more like a crossroads where 2 broken souls might just collide. The sea had once been Owen's salvation, a vast canvas where he and Mara painted their dreams with salt and sunlight. Flashbacks flickered like sunlight on waves, her laughter echoing across the deck as they hauled in nets heavy with silver fish, her hand warm in his under the stars, whispering of a future with children and quiet harbors. But 3 winters ago, a storm, merciless, unforgiving, swallowed her boat whole, leaving Owen adrift in a world stripped of color. Now the town of Eldridge Bay, with its fog-shrouded docks and weathered shanties, felt like a graveyard of what was. He wandered the cliffs in memory, his vitality eroded like the rocks below each tide, pulling away another piece of who he used to be. Grief had hollowed him, turning vibrant eyes dull, his steps mechanical echoes of a life once full. The lighthouse rumors were just another ripple, but they stirred the depths, reminding him that emptiness wasn't eternal, though he feared it might be. Owen's cabin crouched at the town's edge, a squat box of faded wood and creaking floors where silence reigned like a stern captain. Mornings blurred into rituals, coffee black as the abyss nets mended with fingers that moved on autopilot, avoiding the mirror that reflected a man he barely knew. He spoke little to the fishermen at the dock, their pitying glances like hooks in his skin. Instead, he armored himself with grunts and nods, walls built from the debris of loss. Evenings found him at the worn table, a bottle his only companion, the amber liquid numbing the ache but never filling the void. The sea called from beyond the window, a siren's taunt, but he turned away, his heart frozen in that storm's grip. The lighthouse's distant barks pierced this numbness one sleepless night, a crack in his defenses, whispering that perhaps isolation wasn't the only anchor left. Drift's fur was a map of betrayals, each scar a story etched by the sea's cruel hand. Once he had been Shadow, the loyal companion to Captain Harris, on the Coast Guard cutter Horizon, his paws steady on the deck as they braved tempests to rescue the lost. Harris had praised him then a rough pat on the head after every patrol, but that bond fractured the night of the sabotage. The shipwreck wasn't an accident. Harris had tampered with the engines for insurance gold, abandoning the crew to the waves' mercy. Drift, chained below deck, fought the rising water, his barks drowned by the roar until the chain snapped like a promise broken. He swam through the chaos debris, clawing at his flanks, a gash opening on his hind leg that would forever limp. Washing ashore near the lighthouse, half-drowned and feral with mistrust, he clawed his way inside, finding the sealed door, a room Harris had used to hide evidence of his deceit logs, belongings of the drowned, a faked death certificate. Drift guarded it not out of duty, but survival's raw instinct, his eyes hollowed by the betrayal of the one human he trusted. Growls replaced barks, his body lean and wired, flinching at every shadow that smelled of man. The storms became his only companions, their fury echoing his inner rage, a mute testament to abuse that left him scarred outside and shattered within. He ate what the tide offered, crabs, driftwood scraps, his coat matted with salt that stung old wounds. Nights blurred into days of vigilant watch, his breath-shallow ears pricked for the return of the betrayer. In the lighthouse's echo, Drift's pain was a silent scream, mirroring the human world's capacity for cruelty, his loyalty twisted into a fortress of fear. Yet deep in those amber eyes, a flicker remained, a ghost of the dog who once leaped into waves to save lives, now waiting for someone to pull him from his own drowning. Owen returned to the lighthouse the next day, drawn by an invisible tether, his footsteps hesitant on the cliff path. Drift watched from the shadows, body low and tense amber eyes, tracking every movement like a predator assessing prey or kin. Neither spoke in words. Owen sat against the wall, knees drawn up, his silence a mirror to the dog's guarded stillness. The man's grief was a quiet storm, eyes distant as he fingered a wedding band long tarnished, while Drift's scars itched under his fur, a physical echo of that inner tempest. Slowly their breaths synchronized, the rise and fall of chests battered by loss, Owen's from the sea's theft, Drift's from man's deceit. A shared glance passed, brief but electric recognition flickering like a lighthouse beam in fog. Both had been abandoned to the waves, both clung to ruins. Owen tossed a scrap of bread, not forcing proximity, and Drift sniffed it from afar, his nose twitching with caution born of betrayal. The man didn't push. He understood the flinch, the way trust shattered left shards that cut deep. As dusk fell, Owen rose to leave, but paused at the door, whispering, "I'll be back," more to himself than the dog. Drift's ears perked, a subtle shift, his body uncoiling just a fraction. Their healing would be this way. Mirrored steps, one wary paw forward, one hesitant hand extended, building a bridge over the chasm of emptiness. The lighthouse held them both now, its walls a canvas for parallel wounds, where emptiness met emptiness, and perhaps in time filled it. The storm descended like a vengeful spirit, winds howling through the lighthouse's cracks, rain lashing the windows in sheets that blurred the world outside. Owen had returned, compelled by the pull of those amber eyes, but now the gale trapped him, the door rattling as if the sea itself demanded entry. Lightning cracked the sky, illuminating Drift in stark relief. The German shepherd huddled near the sealed door, its scarred body, trembling fur plastered against ribs that spoke of hunger's bite. Barks tore from its throat, desperate and raw. Not warnings, but pleas echoing off the stone walls like cries from a sinking ship. The air thickened with the scent of wet earth and ozone thunder rumbling like a heartbeat too close to breaking. Owen's pulse raced, shock rooting him as another flash revealed Drift's limp, worsening a fresh wound from the debris whipping about. The dog's eyes locked on his wide, with a vulnerability that pierced the numbness in Owen's chest, a visceral tug like a line cast into his soul, urging him to reel in this broken creature before the storm claimed it too. Chaos swirled waves crashing below the cliff, threatening to erode the foundation. the lighthouse groaning under the assault. Drift paced, whining between barks, its body low as if the sealed door held not just secrets, but salvation. Owen stepped closer, heart hammering the urgency of fire in his veins. He couldn't leave now, not with the night devouring everything in its path. Owen froze inches from Drift, his hand hovering in the charged air. Why risk it? The voice in his head was Mara's, soft and accusatory, reminding him how caring had gutted him, her smile fading into the waves, leaving him a shell on the shore. Fear coiled tight logic, screaming to bolt the door and flee, to let the storm swallow this stranger's pain, rather than invite more into his own fractured world. But Drift's low whine cut through raw and exposed a sound that echoed the ache Owen buried deep, pulling at threads of compassion he thought long severed. Memories flooded Mara's hand in his warm, against the cold spray her laughter lost forever. Could he walk away again, condemn another soul to the abyss? The dog's eyes pleaded, scarred body, a mirror to his grief, tipping the scale. Empathy clashing with terror, a war waged in silence. He exhaled, the argument crumbling. Pity wasn't weakness, not tonight. Owen's hand trembled as he knelt before the sealed door. The wood splintered and swollen from years of salt air, a barrier as formidable as his own guarded heart. Rain hammered the roof like impatient fists, and Drift's growls softened to wary huffs, its body coiled like a spring wound too tight. He whispered to himself, "What am I doing?" But the words dissolved in the storm's roar, his fingers already prying at the rusted latch nails, scraping metal in a messy symphony of resolve. Splinters bit into his skin, blood mixing with rain, but he pushed on the door, creaking open inch by inch, revealing shadows thick with dust and forgotten relics. Drift backed away, ears flattened, amber eyes wide with caution, a flinch that echoed Owen's own hesitations. Yet in that irreversible creak, something shifted. The air between them charged no longer just storm, but commitment. Owen extending his bloodied hand palm up an imperfect offering. "Easy, boy," he murmured, voice cracking like the thunder outside. Drift didn't snap, didn't flee. Instead it paused, nose twitching at the scent of salt and sweat, a tentative bridge forming in the chaos. The gesture was raw, unplanned. His jacket-torn knees muddied, but it marked the turning point from stranger to savior, however flawed. Owen's chest tightened, memories of Mara's final wave flashing, but he held steady, the mess of it all binding him to this scarred soul. With the door ajar, Owen stepped back, giving Drift the space his instincts craved, the room's stale air rushing out like a sigh held too long. He rummaged in his pack, impulsive hands, pulling out a half-eaten sandwich wrapped in oilcloth and a frayed blanket from his boat offerings, meager but sincere. "Here," he said softly, placing them on the floor, the bread's yeasty scent cutting through the musty dampness. Drift's eyes followed every move, body low, intense scars glistening in the dim light filtering through cracks. Owen sat against the far wall, knees drawn up, rain dripping from his hair like tears. He couldn't shed his mind, a whirl of doubt. What if this ends like Mara, in loss? But as Drift inched forward, nose quivering, the dog's caution melted just a fraction. He sniffed the food, then tore into it with guarded bites, crumbs scattering like broken barriers. Owen watched, breath held a fragile warmth blooming in his chest, the first crack in his isolation. Dawn broke over the lighthouse like a reluctant confession. Pale light filtering through the cracked windows, casting long shadows that danced like uneasy ghosts. Owen returned with a sack of provisions, canned meat, fresh water, a rope leash he wouldn't dare use. Yet his steps measured heart, a cautious drumbeat echoing the waves below. Drift eyed him from the corner, body pressed against the sealed door's remnants, a low growl rumbling in its chest like thunder trapped in fur. The dog's ears flattened, amber gaze sharp as shattered glass guarding the invisible perimeter of its pain. Owen felt it too, that invisible wall built from Mara's absence, keeping him at arm's length from the world. He sat on the cold floor, back to the wall, silence stretching between them like a taut fishing line, neither daring to tug. Drift's breaths came in shallow huffs, muscles tensed under scarred skin, a silent sentinel refusing to yield. The lighthouse's hearth crackled faintly. Owen having coaxed a fire from driftwood, its warmth a fragile intruder in the chill that clung like regret. He noticed Drift's paw, the limp more pronounced now, a gash festering under matted fur, echoes of his own unhealed grief, raw and ignored. Kneeling at a respectful distance, Owen unwrapped a cloth soaked in salt water, his hands steady but mind turbulent. This could end in teeth or worse attachment. Drift watched from the shadows, body low, amber eyes, observant slits, wary breaths sinking with the flame's flicker. He extended the cloth slowly, a gesture of truce, and Drift didn't flee, though a soft whine escaped pain's quiet admission. The dog allowed him closer inch by inch until Owen's fingers brushed the wound gentle as a lover's touch long forgotten. Blood and pus mingled with the salt, stinging both. The lighthouse's silence was broken only by the distant crash of waves, a rhythmic pulse that echoed the heartbeat Owen had long forgotten. He sat cross-legged on the floor, a chipped mug of lukewarm tea in hand, steam curling like ghosts from the past. As he set it down too heavily, the handle cracked off with a sharp snap, porcelain skittering across the stone, a sound that hurled him back to that fateful night, Mara's favorite cup shattering on the deck, as the storm announced its fury, her eyes wide with unspoken fear. "Damn," Owen muttered, his voice, a gravel whisper, fingers frozen mid-reach, the memory clawing at his chest like salt in an open wound. Drift, lounging nearby with bandaged paw, lifted his head at the noise, ears perking, a soft bark escaping, not aggressive but inquisitive, a rumble that vibrated through the air like a shared echo. The dog's amber eyes met Owen's, pausing in that gaze. No recoil this time, just a still recognition, as if the bark tied invisible threads between their fractures. Owen's mind raced. That sound, like the chain snapping on the horizon, the night everything broke. He extended a hand slowly, not to touch, but to offer the broken piece a gentle gesture, laden with vulnerability. Drift nosed forward, sniffing the shard, his breath warm against Owen's skin, the first acceptance without wariness. Flashbacks intertwined. Owen saw Mara smiling over morning coffee, her touch light. Drift remembered Harris's rough hand before the betrayal, a pat turned to abandonment. The bark lingered in Owen's ears, triggering a tear. He didn't wipe away the dog's paws, a mirror to his own hesitation. Emotional currents flowed, wordless pain, recognized, not mended, but acknowledged, building a bridge from memory's ruins. The mug lay forgotten, its break a catalyst. Drift's tail giving a faint twitch, the connection deepening in the quiet where gestures spoke louder than storms. Owen exhaled, internal walls cracking like the porcelain. Maybe we're both piecing ourselves back together. The lighthouse felt less, hollow shadows softening as the dog settled closer, not touching yet, but near enough to feel the warmth of shared echoes. Sunlight slanted through the lighthouse's grimy windows, painting the stone floor in golden patches that danced like forgotten embers, warming the air thick with salt and possibility. Owen rummaged in his pack, pulling out a weathered stick washed ashore, its bark peeled smooth by the sea's relentless caress, a simple toy, but in his hands it felt like a lifeline. He tossed it gently across the room, not expecting much, the wood clattering softly against the wall. Drift's head snapped up, ears forward, amber eyes flickering with a curiosity that pierced the melancholy haze. The dog rose slowly, paw testing the bandage, a limp still there but less pronounced, and approached the stick with tentative steps, nose twitching at the scent of tide and timber. Owen's heart stuttered, a soft chuckle escaping his lips, the first in years, raw and rusty, like a door creaking open after a long winter. "Go on, boy," he encouraged inwardly. Just a game, nothing more, but the spark ignited warmth spreading through his veins as Drift pawed the stick tail, giving a hesitant wag. The space-transformed shadows retreated, the chill easing as if the lighthouse itself exhaled in relief. Owen held out a piece of dried fish from his pocket, palm open, vulnerable, the salty aroma mingling with the fire's smoke. Drift paused, eyes locking on his, a moment suspended like foam on a wave. Then, with a soft huff, the dog leaned in, lips gentle as they took the food from his hand. No snap, no retreat, just acceptance that sent a jolt of joy through Owen. Laughter bubbled again, fuller this time, echoing off the walls like a melody long silenced. Sunlight slanted through the lighthouse's grimy windows, painting the stone floor in golden patches that danced like forgotten embers, warming the air thick with salt and possibility. Owen rummaged in his pack, pulling out a weathered stick washed ashore. Its bark peeled smooth by the sea's relentless caress, a simple toy, but in his hands it felt like a lifeline. He tossed it gently across the room, not expecting much, the wood clattering softly against the wall. Drift's head snapped up, ears forward, amber eyes flickering with a curiosity that pierced the melancholy haze. The dog rose slowly, paw testing the bandage, a limp still there but less pronounced, and approached the stick with tentative steps, nose twitching at the scent of tide and timber. Owen's heart stuttered, a soft chuckle escaping his lips, the first in years, raw and rusty, like a door creaking open after a long winter. "Go on, boy," he encouraged inwardly, just a game, nothing more, but the spark ignited warmth spreading through his veins as Drift pawed the stick tail, giving a hesitant wag. The space-transformed shadows retreated, the chill easing, as if the lighthouse itself exhaled in relief. Owen held out a piece of dried fish from his pocket, palm open, vulnerable, the salty aroma mingling with the fire's smoke. Drift paused, eyes locking on his, a moment suspended like foam on a wave. Then with a soft huff, the dog leaned in, lips gentle, as they took the food from his hand. No snap, no retreat, just acceptance that sent a jolt of joy through Owen. Laughter bubbled again, fuller this time, echoing off the walls like a melody long silenced. The fragile peace in the lighthouse began to fray at the edges like fog creeping over calm waters, heralding a shift Owen couldn't yet name. Drift, who had slept soundly at his side, jolted awake in the dead of night, body rigid, ears pricked toward the shadows pooling in the corners. A low growl built in the dog's throat, not the playful rumble of before, but a primal vibration that sent chills racing up Owen's spine, instinct honed by betrayal echoing the past's unquiet ghosts. The air thickened, carrying a faint unfamiliar scent through the cracks, musk and tobacco perhaps, or just the wind's cruel trick. But Drift's posture screamed warning, hackles, raised tail, stiff amber eyes scanning the darkness with unblinking focus. Owen's stirred hand reaching automatically to pet, but Drift pulled away, slightly stillness overtaking him like a statue carved from tension. Outside, the sea murmured restlessly, waves lapping higher on the cliffs. But inside, the environment twisted from sanctuary to sieve, subtle unease seeping in. Drift barked sharply at a shadow flickering from the lantern's dim glow, a sound laced with memory's edge, the shipwreck's chaos. Harris's footsteps fading into the storm. Owen's heart quickened, internal thoughts swirling. What's got you, boy? It's just the wind. Or is it? The dog's alert stance foreshadowed deeper threats, primal senses detecting what human eyes missed, a harbinger of resurfacing trauma that whispered through the stones. The town stirred with whispers like leaves in a gathering wind. Rumors of a ghost returned. Captain Harris spotted at the dockside tavern, his weathered face evasive under the brim of a salt-crusted hat. Owen overheard it while buying supplies, the name hitting like a rogue wave, but it was Drift who sensed the shift. First, the dog's body tensing as they walked the cliff path back to the lighthouse. A familiar scent carried on the breeze, tobacco laced with deceit, and Drift's growls erupted low at first, then building to protective snarls that vibrated through Owen's hand on his fur. The German shepherd planted himself in front of Owen, hackles raised like a shield, amber eyes flashing with recognition's fire, the abuser's shadow Harris, whose betrayal had scarred them both. Owen's mind reeled flashbacks crashing in tales of the horizon's wreck. Harris vanishing, presumed dead, but now alive, evasive in the bar's dim light. "What is it, boy?" Owen murmured, but internally dread coiled. If he's back, what does he want? The lighthouse door burst open under Harris's shove, the wood splintering like the trust he'd shattered years ago, his frame filling the threshold with the storm's fury at his back. "Where is it?" he snarled, eyes wild on the sealed room now exposed with its trove of damning relics, journals soaked in sabotage's ink, a faked death certificate curling like a lie uncovered. Drift lunged first, a blur of fur and fangs, primal confrontation igniting as he clamped onto Harris's boot, growls muffled but fierce recognition immediate in the dog's tensed muscles and bared teeth. Owen staggered forward, heart slamming. "Get out!" his shout a raw explosion, but Harris swung a crowbar pulled from his coat like a hidden sin, crashing it against the wall, inches from Drift's head, the clang echoing like the horizon's hull breaching. Flashbacks assaulted Owen Mara's boat, vanishing in foam, his helplessness then fueling fury now. For Drift, it was Harris's face over the chain that bound him, the man's laughter as he jumped ship. The standoff thickened the air, physical and emotional. Harris' advancing crowbar raised Owen, grabbing a loose plank, swinging wildly in defense wood, meeting metal in a clash that sent sparks flying. Drift released the boot, circling with a limp but undeterred barking, hoarsely positioning between them like a living barrier. Harris's retreat echoed in the lighthouse's hollow, his footsteps fading into the night like a bad dream dissolving at dawn, leaving behind the metallic tang of blood and the acrid scent of fear. Owen slumped against the wall, breath ragged his shoulder, throbbing where the crowbar had glanced, a fresh bruise blooming like a storm cloud on his skin. Drift limped to his side, body still humming with adrenaline, but the growls softened to whimpers as the dog nosed Owen's hand, a tentative lick cleaning the wound, a gesture of reaffirmation, quiet and profound. The sealed room's contents lay scattered journals splayed open, their inked confessions of sabotage glaring in the dim light, but Owen ignored them, focusing instead on Drift's amber eyes, now calm pools reflecting mutual survival. Fog rolled in thick as regret, cloaking the cliffs in a shroud that muffled the sea's eternal roar, turning the lighthouse into an isolated bastion against the unseen. Owen paced the upper gallery, binoculars in hand, but it was Drift who sensed it first. Ears pricking, body stiffening like a bowstring drawn taut, a low whine escaping as if the air itself carried malice. Subtle signs accumulated, a snapped twig on the path below, footprints in the mud, too deliberate for wanderers, the distant crunch of gravel under boots that echoed Harris's gait from memory. The dog's instincts flared, nose flaring at the wind hackles rising in waves along his spine, amber eyes scanning the mist with unerring focus, signaling danger before Owen's human senses caught up. The fog parted like a curtain torn asunder, revealing Harris charging up the lighthouse stairs, crowbar gleaming in the moonlight, his face a mask of desperation twisted by greed's rot. "You should have stayed out of it," he bellowed, voice cracking the night, the direct confrontation erupting as he kicked open the upper door, debris flying like accusations. Owen backed against the railing, heart hammering, but it was Drift who collapsed first, the dog's limp worsening under strain, a yelp escaping as his scarred leg buckled, physical decline stark in the way his body trembled, fur matted with fresh sweat. Harris's eyes locked on the sealed room's contents, scattered proof of his sabotage, the journal's pages fluttering in the wind, detailing engine tampering for insurance crew names crossed out like lives erased. Time fractured in the lighthouse's apex, Harris's crowbar descending like judgment, the air thick with salt and impending finality, Owen's choice, crystallizing in a heartbeat, a decisive surge to protect what the sea had given him. He lunged not away, but forward plank abandoned for bare hands, grabbing Harris's wrist mid-swing, twisting with fisherman's strength, honed by years of battling tides. "Not him!" Owen roared, voice a thunderclap of commitment, transforming tension into action as he shoved Harris back, the man's balance faltering on the slick floor. Drift, though weakened, rose on three legs, a mirror of resolve, barking hoarsely and nipping at heels, their mutual protection a symphony of loyalty. The decision burned in Owen's chest. "I won't lose another knot to this monster," internal resolve, stealing him as he headbutted Harris, stars exploding in his vision, but the crowbar clattering free. Harris stumbled, grasping at the railing, his coat tearing to reveal the journal slipping out, proof tumbling toward the edge, but Owen ignored it, prioritizing rescue, scooping Drift's trembling form with one arm while kicking Harris's knee, the crack echoing like a chain breaking. Emotional resolution flooded, tears stinging as Owen whispered, "I've got you, boy." The dog's weight a precious burden, his licks a affirmation amid the fray. Harris recovered, snarling, "You'll pay for this," lunging anew, but Owen's free hand found the fallen crowbar, swinging it not to kill, but to deflect metal on metal, sparking like catharsis. The abuser reeled, slipping on blood-slick stone, crashing through the railing with a scream that merged with the waves below, irreversible change as he plummeted the sea, claiming its due, a splash lost in the roar. Owen collapsed with Drift cradling the dog fingers, checking wounds, the moment's weight lifting, as breaths synced, emotional waves crashing into peace. The lighthouse stood firm shadows, retreating their bond, unbreakable. Now Owen's choice to protect, sealing it resolution in every stroke of fur, the past's grip loosening like fog at dawn. The lighthouse exhaled as the fog lifted Dawn's pale fingers, creeping through the shattered windows, painting the stone in soft, hesitant gold. Owen sat against the wall, his body a heavy anchor, breaths coming slow and deliberate, each one pulling him further from the edge of chaos. Drift lay beside him, fur rising and falling in gentle waves, the dog's wounds fresh scratches from the fray. The old limp aggravated, tended with makeshift bandages torn from Owen's shirt, the fabric now stained with salt and crimson, a testament to survival's quiet cost. No words passed between them. The air held enough thick with the scent of damp earth and fading adrenaline, the sea below murmuring a lullaby of retreat. Owen's hand rested lightly on Drift's flank, fingers tracing idle patterns, pauses stretching long as memories surfaced and sank, Mara's face in the light. Harris's scream swallowed by waves, emotional voids filling with the simple rhythm of presence. Minimal movements defined the moment, a shift to ease a bruise. Drift's ear twitching at a distant gull's cry, the lighthouse creaking softly, as if sighing in relief. Long sentences of thought unfurled in Owen's mind, weaving through the haze how close they'd come to loss. How the storm's fury had mirrored his inner tempests, now ebbing into this fragile calm. The room felt larger, emptier, yet fuller, shadows retreating like receding tides, leaving space for breath, for being. Owen closed his eyes briefly, a pause, heavy with unspoken gratitude, the warmth of Drift's body seeping into his side, anchoring him as the world outside stirred awake. Soft sentences lingered in the silence, promises of tomorrow, whispers of peace earned through fire. They decompressed together, physical aches dulling under time's gentle press. Emotional weights lifting inch by inch, the crisis's echo fading into the horizon's blush. No rush, no dialogue, just the slow unraveling of tension bodies, still hearts aligning in the aftermath's hush. Days blurred into a steady tempo of recovery, the lighthouse transforming into a cocoon of sensory whispers, the faint creak of floorboards under cautious steps, the salty tang of sea air mingling with the earthy musk of Drift's fur, each element weaving a tapestry of gradual mending. Owen rose first each morning, his movements deliberate, brewing coffee whose bitter aroma filled the space, drawing Drift's nose upward in quiet interest, the dog following him now, not with wariness, but a soft pat of paws mirroring Owen's path to the window, where they watched the waves roll in, endless and forgiving. Eye contact became their language, a lingering gaze over shared meals, Owen breaking bread and offering pieces from his hand, Drift's amber eyes softening as he accepted, teeth gentle, the act repeated daily until it flowed like breath-building trust, layer by layer. Small gestures accumulated like pebbles on a shore drift, lying closer each evening, his body heat seeping into Owen's side as they sat by the fire flames, crackling in harmony with their synced breaths, the dog's tail thumping faintly at a murmured word. Sensory details enveloped them. The rough texture of bandages changed with care. Owen's fingers lingering on scars that echoed his own invisible ones. Drift's low huff of contentment vibrating through touch, interwoven with Owen's internal sighs of release. Over time, the bond deepened, silently walks along the cliff path, Drift matching Owen's stride despite the limp, pausing together at overlooks where the sea's roar drowned out lingering shadows, their recoveries mirroring Owen's shoulders, straightening as grief's weight lightened. Drift's eyes brightening, less haunted by betrayal's ghost. Eating became ritual bowls, side by side. Owen feeding Drift morsels, first the dog's tongue brushing his palm, a spark of warmth that chased emotional chills, behaviors entangling until separation felt unnatural. Lying close evolved from accident to intention, nights with Drift's head on Owen's lap, fur rising with each stroke, emotions surfacing in waves. Gratitude in Owen's steady gaze, loyalty in Drift's unwavering presence. The tempo remained unhurried, days stretching with repeated actions, following one another through rooms, sharing silence, broken only by the sea's song, small nuzzles from Drift, prompting Owen's rare smiles. Sensory-rich moments defined progress, the warmth of sun on fur and skin during afternoon rests. The sound of contented sighs mingling interwoven threads of behavior and feeling, pulling them toward wholeness. Owen's heart mended through these gestures, grief softening like worn edges, while Drift's trust solidified his body, relaxing fully, no flinch at sudden sounds. Together they healed two-way Owen, whispering stories of Mara Drift, listening with tilted head-eye contact, bridging past and present, the bond growing like vines over ruins, silent but profound over the passage of time.